You are listening to MindShock True Crime. This is the Delphi case series. Richard Allen just found guilty at trial, November 11th, 2024. Now, for those familiar with the MindShock series, a logical approach to true crime and all topics and cases we cover, logic and reason at the forefront, unlike anything in the mainstream media, unlike pretty much anything being discussed online by these so-called true crime aficionados. But so many brain-dead goofs out there who hallucinate that if someone is arrested, they must be guilty for the crime they are arrested for. There's no such thing as framing. There's no such thing as corruption. There's no such thing as criminals not acting alone. They had to, because if Allen is guilty, not only is he guilty, he had to have acted alone. That's what you're dealing with when you enter these social media commentaries and chat spaces online. I mean, just the brain-dead goofery is off the charts in this case. Now, I don't know if I want to say it's quite as bad as the Stephen Avery case, because that one is truly bizarre, because the same corrupt cops framed Stephen Avery when there wasn't 36 mil on the line, yet somehow magically they wouldn't do it when there was. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. Now, I am not prepared to say that Richard Allen is guilty in any way. This is, or innocent in any way. This is MindShock. The only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. I am, of course, your host, Bruce McGuire, and if you want to help support logic and reason in a world where it is quickly going extinct, another great example, this verdict right here, and the defense of it, because, it's kind of crazy. Like, if you live outside of the United States and you're not aware of what beyond a reasonable doubt means, I mean, maybe you have some kind of an excuse for maybe thinking that this is all above board. Maybe not. But if you're in the U.S., I mean, it's kind of bizarre. But you can support MindShock, donate to our PayPal, check the link in the description, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case, topic, logical analysis, co-podcast requests. You could also be a guest in the podcast depending on your tier. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind. Leave them in the comment section, or if you are with us live in the live chat, I'll try to get to each and every one. If you're not getting notifications, just sign up for the Patreon. Even the free tier, it's completely free. You will get all of the updates. Okay, so let's see. Let's go through the chat intros here, and then I will report the breaking news today in this one of the most infamous cases in modern true crime history. A lot of people want Maxwell Powers' insight on this case. Flatless says, been waiting for an update, new episode in the case. The Delphi case is what got me hooked on MindShock True Crime. BB says RA just got stitched up so law enforcement could finally just get someone to blame and make themselves appear competent, in my opinion. Witness descriptions of Bridge Guy totally contradict one another. Everything goes back to the timeline, because, again, like, casuals who just read headlines, they don't know. But a lot of these so-called true crime researchers, people who've been following the case, I mean, how utterly clueless are these Dunning-Kruger goofs hallucinating that there wasn't a thermal imaging drone, a FLIR camera, flown the afternoon that the girls went missing and did not find their bodies? I mean, it's basic science. I did a whole episode on algor mortis. If they were killed within even several hours, I mean, there's a several hours margin of error here. The FLIR camera would have seen them. Now, unless the operator's lying. He claimed he saw a deer and small animals, so he would have clearly picked up the heat signature. Algor mortis doesn't even start for 1 to several hours, and then it's only 1 to 1.5 degrees per hour cooling. So unless one is arguing they was submerged in the freezing cold for an extremely long period of time in the river, they were submerged there, then maybe, yeah, then no. But that's not the only issue. Both sides of the creek were searched. There was someone turning away new searchers later in the evening. And then, of course, there were the screams heard at 2 a.m., which were kind of explained as kids playing on a trampoline, even though the witnesses explained the screams as blood curdling. And I'll put that all on the screen in a second, but let's, I mean, I'll do it. Yeah, I'll do it right now, I guess. Nunya Biz says poor man is innocent. They kept him in solitary prison when he'd only been accused. He lost his mind as planned. Well, also, a lot of the brain dead goofs here, they just hallucinated just because someone allegedly confessed. Now, let's say they do have recordings of all of that. Okay, fine. Let's say he really did confess a million times. Does the confession mean it's true? Do the words of humans, possibly tortured, possibly threatened, possibly coerced, or possibly insane, do the words of humans, that's the only thing that matters? Like, where's hard evidence? Like, you can almost disregard the words of humans because the words of humans alone mean nothing. Humans have been known to lie. I mean, this is a shocker. Or be mistaken. For all the clueless goofs, I mean, this is a shocker. False confessions exist. Wrongful convictions exist. I mean, they might have conniptions at this information because I guess, I mean, they're bootlicking so hard it fried their brains. I mean, when you bootlick this hard, I mean, does the brain get fried? I mean, it's kind of crazy. Alright, so, alright, let's go over a couple things that I'm not sure we went over the exact screenshots here. For example, the 2 a.m. screams here. So, this was pretty close to the time it occurred. Why were the police too busy to check out where the screams were coming from if they were searching for 2 lost children? Again, keep in mind, this is before anyone was found. So they're, at this moment, they're only missing. So police are not, the Popo is not interested in blood-curdling screams. So here's the post here. Me and my friends stayed out from 8 p.m. with the search party till the girls were found the next day. Around 2 a.m., we ended up calling the sheriff's office because we heard screams coming from the other side of the bridge. So more people showed up hollering the girls' names. 2 a.m. is when the horror screams happen. So apparently some kind of blood-curdling, very disturbing screams. We called the police to come look again, but they were all busy at the moment. Sounded like the screams came from across the bridge and around the curve to the right of the river under the bridge. Okay. So, oh, Dalton Hamilton in the chat here. I've been looking for your vids on the case for months. Found you again today here. Been trying to show my wife all the other questionable people in the case. The Kelsey German boyfriend BS. Well, I mean, we're just scratching the surface with BS here. And by the way, the entire playlist will be back up within a few days. Finalizing the archive and everything. All the MINDSHOCK playlists will be back online pretty soon. So yeah, there's this issue with, the other issue that nobody talks about is the FBI agents on the ground before the girls ever went missing. So we have no clue what the investigation was about. Apparently these are agents connected to the Nasser investigation. So the Olympic doctor weirdo, which may have also been connected to some kind of human trafficking, who knows? I mean, that case is absolutely insane. And then you have just an endless amount of corruption. You have you have Keegan Klein and the gas station footage where he's going to the gas station. The footage goes missing. I mean, the FBI apparently can't recover it. Who believes that? And was that covered at trial? I haven't seen anything regarding the missing gas station footage at trial. So that's kind of an issue. I mean, do any of the brain-dead bootlickers think that that's not an issue? They're just, oh, nothing to see here. Gas station footage in the area. Could have possibly caught the one of the perps. Get some timeline, get a better timeline. But yeah, nothing to see here for the coincidence theorist bootleggers. I mean, they think that's all above board, I guess. I mean, I don't know. It's pretty weird stuff. Now, I'm not going to go through all the science on the thermal imaging drone. We've already done that. So you could check that out. It'll be back online shortly. And so yeah, none of it makes sense. They never bothered to even get a height approximation. So apparently what was reported that it cost, so the trial was around $4 million, and it cost $10,000 to do some kind of height assessment from the video. And this opens up so many cans of worms, because if you haven't seen the episode on the trail cams, it almost looks like this footage, the bridge guy footage, is, I mean, is it from a trail cam? I went over this. For some reason, people are too terrified to even examine this line of inquiry. Because again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. Maybe it was from the iPhone. But if it wasn't, and it was from the trail cam as reported in the earlier reports, I mean, who forgot about this? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that should have been gone over in the trial. For some reason, you know, I mean, there was the gag order and all that, but just give me a second. I'll bring that on the screen as well. But there's all these, what do we call them? Anomalies. I mean, when you have this many anomalies, does nobody find it curious? I mean, it's just, again, look at any other cases which are actually above board. Like, yeah, there might be like one weird thing, not 40. I mean, that's kind of, that's the thing. Coincidence theorists, I mean, their mental deficiency is so severe. They're incapable of even comparing cases where everything's above board. The guilty party is found guilty. There's no unanswered question. I mean, everything's above board. And then you look at a case like this where nothing is above board. Just about nothing. And they don't have the mental capacity to compare cases. So here, and again, so Richard Allen is what, 5'4"? Witnesses put the suspect 5'8" to 5'10", somewhere around there. And it was about so apparently it would have cost $10,000 to do some kind of advanced, I mean, I don't know, does this really look like Richard Allen here? Kinda I don't know. I mean, a lot of people tried to enhance it in different ways, but there were trail cameras too, so, and nobody knows what happened to those trail cameras. So in this article here, what was reported, yeah, look at this. For those that forgot, y'all must have forgot. Indiana police are asking for the public's help identifying a man captured by a trail camera near the site where the bodies of 13-year-olds Liberty German Abigail Williams were found earlier this week. So Libby was actually 14, so the people that are saying, oh, they just got so many mistakes here, I mean, there's a slight difference between getting the age wrong and the actual source of a video. And this is early on, too, so let's see what the date here was. Okay, the date's not on the screenshot, but I went over it on the trail camera episode. So I believe it was within days. Within days. So it was originally reported that it was a trail camera. And if you look at the angle, it does appear more, it's seemingly, because the trail camera could be mounted a little higher. If you look at the angle here, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. But apparently they didn't think it was necessary to do a height analysis. Because now, you know, this is 2024 now. So technology obviously is advancing quite quickly. AI, non-AI, all different types of technology advancing. So they could have done a height analysis. Now, supposedly the margin of error, it could be up to 4 inches in error. So if the witnesses put him at somewhere around 5'10", then that, and if that's what the height analysis determined, that he was 5'10"-ish, then the maximum error would put the shortest it could be would be 5'6". Alan is 5'4". And the tallest he'd be is 6'2". So they could have ruled out Alan based on the height analysis if it was accurate, and if it came, depending on what it came back. So these are the things nobody's talking about for some reason. Like, very, very curious that nobody wants to talk about these so-called anomalies. But here on MINDSHOCK, of course, we talk about everything. We go down every possible avenue of investigation. Truth Trollette says that is convenient. And then again, everybody forgot about the original report that it was a trail camera. I mean, how often are this massive of mistakes made? Like the age thing, you know, 1 year off on the age. I mean, that happens all the time. You know, maybe even time, age. But like, how often is the source? I mean, when they say it's CCTV, it's CCTV. How often has it been mistaken that somebody used their cell phone versus CCTV or a trail camera in the history of true crime reporting? If it really was a mistake, this might have been the only time ever. Dalton Hamilton says, I definitely think it was deeper than Richard Allen. I think I seen a vid someone close to the girls told her they were sacrificing animals and was ready to move to something more. I think some cult did it. And who can forget about the testimony of the white vehicle? This was all brushed under the rug. Oh, by the way, yeah, this article was February 16th, 2017. So they actually did get the ages correct in the opening, and they got them incorrect later on in the article, that they were both 13. But that's, you know, again, that's so they did actually get the ages correct here earlier in the article. So they're not that incompetent. So they slipped up a little later, but again, would they make the mistake of a trail camera near the site? I mean, these are big questions here that have never been thoroughly addressed. And regarding the cults, because a lot of goofs hallucinate there are no cults. I had a over 8-hour deep dive, 8 hours of receipts of satanic cults sacrificing humans and filming it, snuff films, etc. For all the coincidence theorist goofs, that'll be back online shortly as well. But the reason I did that for 8 hours is because there really are brain dead goofs out there who thinks that satanic panic was all made up and that there are 0 humans out there involved in satanic sacrifice. It's a weird thing. They're just too mentally weak to accept that, you know, the world is a dark place and there are evil humans out there. Unfortunately, that is the truth of reality. So, I mean, we have all these unanswered questions with the... Okay, let's go over the FLIR one more time, just if anybody's new here. So, regarding the drone, because a lot of people are hallucinating and pretending that there was never any FLIR drone in the first place. So, Mike Buttram posted this himself. So, Search efforts for Abby and Libby, evening of February 13th, 2017. I mentioned to a co-worker, Joel Wagner, that I had recently built a drone with FLIR thermal camera attached. Several weeks after that conversation, I was contacted by Joel regarding two girls who were lost on the Monon High Bridge Trail at Delphi. He asked if I would drive over and meet him at the sheriff's station, and I agreed. Under the explicit direction of the authorities who were in charge of the search efforts, I flew the drone above the trees and along the path of the river. So again, because some brain-dead goofs were trying to pretend that that's not where he flew it. The purpose of the flight was to detect thermal heat images while conducting the search. At this point in time, it was believed that the children were lost and possibly injured. No foul play suspected. In my rush to find the girls, there was no step taken to verify that I was recording the search. As a result, I have no footage of that evening's events. Now, I'm not sure if I believe this, because if the authorities have the footage, and it clearly shows no bodies, what does that mean? And they told him, like, they confiscated it and told him to say that there was no footage. Again, I'm not claiming that that's true. I'm just saying, you know, how do we verify this information? Awesome Town Matt in the chat says, would we be talking about Richard Allen if he didn't go to the police and tell them that he was on the trail that day? Not the sharpest tool in the shed. Well, in the shed. And yeah, they knew about him the whole time. And also, I mean, we'll go over, they actually said they arrested the guy, they arrested Bridge Guy, and Bridge Guy was cleared. We'll go over that next. And it wasn't Richard Allen who they arrested. So anyway, let's continue here. I flew two different places. One was near one of the girls' home at High Point. The other was off the railroad bridge. I can only tell you that throughout the flight, heat was detected from wildlife, primarily deer, as well as humans moving around near the riverbed. So apparently, supposedly it was working properly. I cannot know with absolute certainty whether my flight path included the site. It was near pitch black, so it was difficult to know exactly how far upstream and downstream I flew. However, the focus of the search was downstream of the site where the children were ultimately discovered. So if he saw people in the riverbed right next to the bridge, then clearly he would have detected the heat signature if they were there. Not to mention also human searchers were also searching both sides of the creek. I searched that evening with my UAS with thermal camera, Joel Wagner, and the Delphi Sheriff Department. So, were you able to cover the entire area where the girls were found? Yes, covered the area and was able to see the deer and search party in the creek, but nothing else. Do you think they were there that night? Not sure. Thermal camera was working great, but no sign. So, not sure if they were there. Further verification of people who contacted him. Was it you who did the drone operation? Yes, it was me that flew that evening. They were missing. Joel Wagner called me. So again, same story on all these different social media sites with all of this verification. So multiple platforms he was contacted on, answers all the same. I was at the sheriff's station right before dusk and followed Joel and the sheriff to a high point among the trail near one of the girls' homes, flew with the thermal camera and could see deer and people searching along the creek, did not see the girls, then moved to the bridge and flew there up and down the creek, saw the same, people searching and animals. So it says he flew up and down, so both sides of the bridge. So I mean, it sounds like it was pretty thorough. Sounds like he was quite thorough as possible given the information available. So about 200 feet. So he was flying two things. So he was in a hurry and does not have any footage. So he was too in a hurry to record the footage. Also, he says here that he doesn't have footage. It didn't say it wasn't recorded, but maybe the same thing. I saw people in the creek and out of the creek searching wildlife, but no girls. Okay. So, there you have it for the coincidence theorist goofs. Those are the receipts. Okay, now let's move on to Bridge Guy, the guy in the photo that was arrested, corroborated by multiple law enforcement agencies. I think I did 2 episodes on this because so many goofs got triggered. So many bootlicking goofs got so triggered by law enforcement's own reports. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So this is a clarification put out on the sketches, April 24th, 2019 by the Indiana State Police. So here we have here. There are 2 sketches. They are not the same person. The person depicted in the original release sketch is not presently a person of interest. The sketch released April 22nd is representative of the face of the person captured in the video as he was walking on the high bridge. The person in the sketch released April 22nd is described as having a youthful appearance. The person's appearance could look different today. Okay. So the person in the originally released sketch, so that's old guy. That's old bridge guy. So let's look here. So the guy in the video, the sketch representing the guy in the video, is not presently a person of interest. Okay, furthermore here, Jim Clemente, this is Best Case, Word Case Podcast, episode 122. So, Francie Hake says, the police obviously know who they're looking for, spent a significant amount of time looking for the man in the sketch. As you said, Jim, that man, it turned out, was arrested and was a sex offender, but what we found out recently, he was apparently not the killer. So they apparently arrested a guy, not Richard Allen, but the guy in the originals, in the old guy sketch, representing the guy in the video. And he was arrested previously, not Richard Allen. So were the police just lying about everything all the time? And if it really is Richard Allen, so the police were just always lying about everything all the time. Because Jim Clemente is the former New York State prosecutor and FBI profiler. So clearly he's got ties to what's going on here. Pretty well respected guy. So again, are they all lying? Were they given false information on purpose to leak to the podcast? I mean, I don't know how coincidence theorists are going to try to cope with all that. I mean, the coincidence theorist cope here is insane. Truth Trollette says, who wouldn't have or record footage for something like that? It's asinine. Well, here's the thing. At the time, they were just missing, and everybody thought that they were at a party at a friend's house. So, I mean, I'm not sure if I can really chastise people too much for not... Because they're missing only for a couple hours. So, well, allegedly. Unless you believe the theory that something happened to them the day before. But as far as anybody knew, other than the perpetrators, this was just girls that were missing for just a few hours. So I'm not sure if people would always record, especially, back in 2017, like some of those SD card medias, they were a little bit more expensive than now, especially if these are not rich people. I mean, I don't know. BB says, is there any way for someone to check arrest records to figure out who the old bridge guy was? Okay. So, there's a lot of theories, because there were a lot of POIs, or suspects, or whatever you want to call them, who were connected to the case and ruled out. So some of them committed suicide, etc. There were a lot. So it could have been any one of those, I guess, but none of those are Richard Allen, of course. So I guess if you want to believe they were just that incompetent and they were just wrong about everything all the time, I mean it's still kind of weird. It's still kind of weird about just the heavy interest in Ron Logan. So it either one of my theories, because people were kind of saying, if Ron Logan really did it, would the bodies be found? Would he stage the bodies on his own property? Of course not. But someone else trying to frame Ron Logan, they would do that. But here's the thing, that doesn't absolve Ron Logan, because if he was involved and there were other parties also involved, and the other parties wanted to implicate only him, because of course there was that pig roast, the alleged pig roast that weekend. So that's kind of an issue. That's definitely an issue. And then there's also Ron Logan's roommate that was staying with him. But, I mean, I don't know. Is Ron Logan bridge guy? Some people think the dent in the hat, even the dent in the hat matches. Or did someone just steal Ron Logan's clothes? I mean, there's just there was so much heavy interest in Ron Logan. They really thought it was him. Now, if it's not him, it really does seem like he kind of knows what happened. I mean, look at this guy's face. I mean, he's absolutely terrified. Now, I guess anybody would be with bodies found, but I don't know. Reading his face, it just looks like there's something more there beyond just generic terror. And of course, is it too much of a coincidence? Is it too much? Because there's so many coincidences here. Because of course, you have Garrett Kurtz here, who was intimately familiar with Ron Logan's land. He had grown up on Ron Logan's land, whatever their relationship was. This guy, of course, already in prison for murdering another individual. I mean, just this tangled web of all these different individuals is... I mean, it's crazy. And then the Odinist connections. So all those early rumors of ritualistic murder, again, the early rumors turned out to be true. They were staged in some kind of fashion, where they're truly perpetrated by the satanic or Odinist, satanic people, whatever, and or, I'm not saying they're both. A lot of goofs get triggered and start saying Odinism isn't satanic, and or Satanists staging it as Odinists, whatever the case may be. I mean, it just, early rumors just turn out to be true so often. And of course, a lot of the coincidence theorists gifts, they just completely disregard all of that. And I mean, there's just way too many of these weird coincidences. I mean, even guys like Chadwell, who's camping out at the Monon High Bridge in that area, supposedly with ties to the one and only Keegan Kline. And that's difficult to write off. I mean, people have done social media deep dives into all of these individuals, but this is a guy that simply cannot be written off. Supposedly, he might have been there at the location with another vehicle. You also have, I mean, there's just so many connections. You have their connections to all that online shadiness, possibly snuff films. The rumors are just never ending. Him and his pops take a trip to Vegas. I mean, it's weird, which is obviously a trafficking hub and a snuff film hub as well, based on rumors online. So you have all of this going on. Are we to believe none of this is connected to anything? And then, of course, the earliest rumors were that they were taken to a barn. And the Mears was, I believe it was the Mears barn. I mean, there's quite a few barns in the area, but apparently a barn was taken down shortly after the murders. Just another one of these coincidences. I mean, just really weird. Probably all coincidental, right? Everything is always all coincidental. I mean, you could see some of these structures on Google Maps, not terribly far from the bridge. And so, if they were taken elsewhere, then brought back for the staging. I mean, there's actually quite a few structures in that area. Not too far from the creek. So those are the early rumors. I mean, are they true? I don't know. It's just, it's awfully convenient everybody stopped talking about them. Baby says, you mean you don't think Ron Logan just happened to develop a sudden interest in getting a tropical fish aquarium on the day of the crime while having a suspended license? Well, you know what? When the urge to develop a tropical fish aquarium strikes, even people with no licenses, they find themselves risking it. Because, I mean, when the compulsion to develop a tropical fish aquarium strikes, I mean, who can resist that kind of compulsion? I mean, this compulsion might be more powerful than a crack addict needing a fix. I mean, tropical fish aquarium compulsions, I mean, perhaps we need to do a study on this. I mean, is Ron Logan simply a victim of tropical fish aquarium compulsion? Because if so, that could honestly explain his trip. I mean, it really could. We can't, I mean, we shouldn't understate tropical fish aquarium compulsion. And then also, although that actually still doesn't get him off the hook, because we have his roommate, and then also, why is he calling somebody to set up an alibi before the girls were even found? I mean, I don't know. Unless the tropical fish in the tropical fish aquarium, maybe they were psychic fish? If they were just psychic tropical fish, perhaps they told him that the bodies would be found on his property, and that's why. Maybe it's all innocent. Maybe it's the psychic tropical fish gave him the warning, and that's why he was trying to establish an alibi, and he really was completely innocent. I mean, I would like to see that line. I would like to see that questioning go in court. You know, going over that. I'd like to see that in court. You think that'll fly? I mean, I'm just trying to really think of every possibility here. I mean, tropical fish aquarium compulsion is no joke. Don Sharian posted a tropical fish. I mean, tropical fish compulsion can tropical fish aquarium compulsion can strike at any time. I mean, it really. I mean, there might be a mental health crisis happening soon. I mean, even people with suspended licenses risking jail time to develop their tropical fish aquariums. Dalton Hamilton says, I live in Indiana, so it really trips me out, but I've heard all kinds of names. Brad Holder, Mike Patty, the sister was or could have been involved. Feel like the little girls got let down. Well, yeah, no doubt. Regardless of what happened, I mean, they were failed big time here. Absolutely big time. I mean, just the occult layers go pretty far. I mean, you're talking about Delphi, Oracle of Delphi, Abigail Williams, you know, is obviously a famous witch. That's the name of a famous witch. Some people believe that names have energy as well. So Abigail Williams was actually one of the first children to falsely accuse their neighbors of witchcraft in 1692, leading to the Salem witch trial. So a lot of hoopla there. And Liberty German, of course, Liberty and then German, a lot of German neo-Nazis, Odinism, etc. So the overlap is pretty crazy there. So apparently, according to WTHR, the jury deliberated for approximately 19 to 20 hours over several days, reaching the verdict Monday afternoon. Allen has been found guilty on all 4 counts for the murders of Abby Williams, Liberty German. So, felony murder of knowingly and intentionally killing both girls. It took the jury less than 2 minutes to enter the courtroom and read the verdict. Before sentencing was read, Special Judge Francis Gull, and yeah, this judge is quite special with all of the stipulations here. I mean, I don't know how they didn't get a different judge here. I mean, just corruption and or incompetence across the board. Regardless of what the verdict is, people aren't going to be happy. During the discussion of sentencing, Allen looked at his wife, Kathy, and asked, "Are you okay?" Libby's sister, Kelsey, posted on Instagram, writing, "Nearly 8 years, today was the day." And then, of course, there were all the comments about the web, the many tentacles, and so supposedly, you know, all these other people involved, and yet none of that mentioned here, which is interesting. Kathy Allen, Richard Allen's wife, told 13 News, quote, "This isn't over at all," end quote, as she left the courtroom. So if he confessed to her and she believed his confession, what does that mean? Does that mean she knows he's guilty and he didn't act alone, or she knows he's innocent? I mean, everything was wrong about the witness statements, from the color of the eyes to the height. I mean, it's kind of weird how goofs hallucinate. Well, witness reports aren't accurate, so if it's not accurate, how do you know it's him based on witness testimony? Because they're just cherry-picking some of the witness statements that sound closer to him. I mean, the color of the clothes was off. I mean, different witnesses said different things. And if the time of death is not even close to that afternoon, it doesn't even matter if the witnesses really did see him and if he really was there. That's what a lot of the brain dead goofs, like, they just can't grasp those basics. I mean, we're talking about absolute basics of logic here. And they just can't grasp it. Nino Aldo in the chat saying, "You'd be surprised how that particular hobby/interest can creep up on you. I literally had to snap myself out of it. I caught myself looking into a pet fish store window." Yeah, that compulsion can creep up on you quick. I mean, you know, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, the last thing we're going to go over is the confession. But I just wanted to go over everything else first, do a quick recap, and see if anybody had any questions here, because... So the jury was 5 men, 7 women. I mean, it just seems strange how what evidence do they actually have on him? A spent shell casing or an unspent shell casing, and that's it. And the fact that he may have walked the area at that particular time, which might not be the time that the murder even took place. And that's it. So, I mean, that's kind of weird. So he's going to be back in for sentencing 9 a.m. December 20th. He faces 90 to 130 years in prison. If he loses his appeal, he's likely to spend the rest of his life behind bars. So there was an unspent round found between the bodies that investigators alleged had been cycled through Allen's Sig Sauer model P226 40 cal handgun, and dozens of confessions. So that's all they have? That's interesting. So that casing theoretically could have been there before the bodies, or planted by anybody, and obviously cycled through his gun by any other individual. So is this what constitutes beyond a reasonable doubt? Are we really living in a time of Idiocracy, where Idiocracy was a documentary, and one unspent round, because keep in mind, the girls were not shot. So, and people shoot off guns all the time in the woods. So, and obviously if somebody was trying to frame him, I mean, that's pretty, so this is what constitutes beyond a reasonable doubt now? I mean, this is a sad day for the justice system. And again, if we tested those jurors, would they pass even like a preschool or kindergarten level logic test? I mean, who thinks they would? Let's do a poll here. So, let's see what everybody in the chat thinks. Would the jurors who deliberated for 18 to 20 hours, found him guilty on all counts, do they understand what beyond a reasonable doubt means, and would they pass a basic logic test? Wow, we actually have some people voting yes. And of course, some people are too triggered to answer. Dalton says the media bias and cognitive distance is enough for all the jurors to have ruled against him, to be honest. It's just kind of insane, though, because it like, nothing makes sense. I mean, they couldn't even at least plant some of his fingerprints there? Because that still wouldn't be beyond a reasonable doubt, given all the information about the, the lack of time, of definitive time of death, if they were killed elsewhere, etc. But at least if they planted some fingerprints, I mean, come on. An unspent round from the non-murder weapon? I mean, this is kind of weird. Truth Trollette saying, yes, Bruce, we are living in that time, the time of Idiocracy. Alright, 67% say no, the jurors would not have passed a basic logic test. 11% say yes, 22% too triggered to answer. Okay. I mean, was it even adequately explained? So, Rozzy, Allen's lawyer, said that there was a gaping 5-hour hole in the timeline during which somebody plugged in a headphone jack into Libby's phone. The testimony from the defense's digital forensic expert cast doubt, this is from IndyStar.com, cast doubt on the prosecution's theory that the girls were killed earlier that afternoon and their bodies were left in the woods untouched for hours until first responders found them the next day. Because, I mean, there's also the clothes in the creek, the shoe right off the main trail from the Mountain High Bridge. Apparently nobody noticed it. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make it, because Kelsey supposedly said she went down that trail and didn't see the shoe. Magically the next day the shoe's there. It's kind of weird. Defense attorneys also called multiple experts to rebut testimony from Walla that Allen faked psychosis. A neuropsychologist told jurors that months of solitary confinement exacerbated Allen's depression and dependent personality disorder and drove him to psychosis. A psychiatrist and an expert on solitary confinement told jurors that Allen's behavior and mental state at Westville are perfectly consistent with effects of prolonged isolation. Yeah, I mean, even if he's guilty, like, this whole setup is just such a miscarriage of justice. He needs to be found guilty legitimately, if he's guilty. So this, yeah, I mean, this is really tough because, I mean, none of anything really adds up. So I'm not sure if it was, so somebody plugged something in to Libby's phone during that window of time. I mean, you have this other, I mean, you have so many individuals in that area. You have the one guy parking his truck nearby the cemetery. I mean, you have this alleged pig roast. You have so many problems here with this case. I mean, this is I mean, can you imagine it being further from beyond a reasonable doubt? I mean, I can't really imagine it further from that. I mean, I don't know. You'd think they have some kind of legitimate evidence here. Especially with the amount of brain-dead goofs coming out of the woodwork, hallucinating that he's definitely 100% guilty and there's nothing to even discuss here. I mean, those goofs, I mean, they're all over the place. Little Star in the chat says, according to Kelsey and law enforcement, Libby had 3 black Nikes at the crime scene. That's interesting. I didn't see that. Yeah, that's weird. Flat Bob in the chat says, I voted no, they wouldn't pass the basic logic test because I've learned in my few short years on Earth that people are unbelievably stupid, emotionally driven, and easily manipulated. It's hard to argue any of that, Flat Bob. It is hard to argue any of that. Okay. So, yeah, there's just so many problems here. I mean, it's kind of hard. Like, none of this case adds up here. Like, is it really that hard to understand beyond a reasonable doubt? People on Twitter with some really dark posts here. A jury has declared that it is perfectly legal to hold someone in solitary confinement in a maximum security prison without being convicted of a crime and psychologically torture that person to coerce a confession. This country is headed down a dark path. That is Will Weaver, RVA, on Twitter. Dark, dark times for the justice, or as some people call it, the injustice system. I mean, how did everybody completely sweep under the rug the multiple perpetrators, the many tentacles of this? I mean, this is tough. This is really tough. But if nobody has any other questions, I'm just going to round this out with some basic stats on wrongful convictions, because a lot of goofs hallucinate that the conviction is enough. The conviction in an unspent round. I mean, could this case be any weaker? No corroborated time of death, a FLIR camera not showing the bodies, searchers searching both sides of the creek. I mean, this is really, really tough. I mean, could this be further from beyond a reasonable doubt? I mean, I guess if he was on CCTV in a different country, I mean, that would be a little bit that would be further. But I mean, other than that, I mean, I don't know. That's tough. Let's look at this clip another time.
people out searching the area last night, walking both sides of the creek bank. Sides of the creek bank
in Carroll County.
Over 100 people out searching the area last night, walking both sides of the creek bank.
So clearly both sides of the creek bank were searched. And then of course there's the mysterious individual turning people away from searching the exact place where they were eventually found. You know, Aldo saying, I'd say an individual on a case-by-case basis isn't nearly as problematic as 12 people as a whole. There's no way 12 random individuals wouldn't be biased by that very fact. Predominantly. Yeah. I mean, there's just so many issues here beyond the FLIR camera. Just looking at it objectively, I mean, it just seems like there's no way the bodies could have been there, unless... You'd have to ignore just such a mountain of evidence. You'd have to ignore so much to continue to hallucinate that the so-called official timeline is legitimate. I mean, you'd have to ignore so much. You have to ignore FLIR, Algor Mortis, all the searchers, the person turning away the searchers, the clothing along the trail not being found until after the initial afternoon, even though people were walking the exact path and area where the clothing was found. I mean, yeah, it's just, what else can you do here? Logic and reason is definitely going extinct. I mean, yeah, I mean, people obviously want to see somebody punished for this, so they get all emotional and brain dead instead of objectively following logic and reason, because if Alan is innocent, the real killers got away because of all these emotional brain dead goofs allergic to basic logic and reason. And the defense of this perversion of justice and ignoring beyond a reasonable doubt, ignoring all logic and reason here. I mean, another thing people are talking about, I mean, this guy worked at the CVS, and all the people that saw him, so the Delphi community is not that large. Let's look at the population here. Okay. There's 2,961 people here. I mean that's nobody. That's nothing. In 2017 it was 2,800. I mean, you're talking about 2,800 people. I mean, a large percentage of them children. And so the people that saw him on the trails, they never went into the CVS where he worked a single time. They never saw him at the grocery store. They never saw him walking on the street for years. Over the course of almost a decade, they never once saw him on the street. They never once talked to him at CVS. I mean, that's kind of a big ask. If this was New York City or any kind of bigger city, or even the bigger cities in Indiana, like, it's just... There's a lot of issues here. I mean, that's really all that can be said here. I mean, it just doesn't none of this passes the basic sniff test, like, without even getting into any of the science or any of the physics or any of these advanced criminology or technological concepts. It doesn't pass the basic sniff test. BB says, I wonder if any of the jurors thought Richard Allen was not guilty but gave in because the other jurors were too obstinate. Well, here's the thing. Even if they think he's guilty, if it's not beyond a reasonable doubt, they can't find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the issue. So it's not that they had to think he was innocent. They could all think he's guilty, but they can't convict based on no evidence. Based on, I mean, I don't even want to call it circumstantial. I don't even know if it meets the definition of circumstantial. It might not even be there. Chris Owen says, I heard they were able to ID Alan's voice on the audio recording, but I don't know if that's true or not. Okay, let's say it is true. Let's say it is true. Is that beyond a reasonable doubt? So if they encountered a guy on the bridge, how does that prove that that's the guy that marched them down? Most people believe that there were at least two guys, and they were handed off to somebody else. And possibly even left in a vehicle, taken to another location, or marched to a barn or Ron Logan's or whatever. So even if that's his voice, like even if we say it is his voice, and then also there's the issue of if that recording was, there's a lot of issues. Some people think that whole video is fake, in which case the audio could either be fake or taken from a different audio to match Alan's voice. But even if it's real, though, even if it's real, that's still not beyond a reasonable doubt. That's like a lot of these issues. There was actually another guy who matched the voice really closely. I think I went over him in the first few episodes. I don't know if you guys want to go over that again now or just get to the wrongful conviction stuff. You can let me know. You can let me know in the chat if you guys want to go over that. Might take me a minute to find it, but there was actually a vocal comparison made. I mean, this is probably year 1 or 2 of online sleuths really putting in the work here. But between the FLIR cam, the searchers, the clothes not being found, and the 2 a.m. screams, I mean, that alone puts so much doubt on the so-called official timeline. And now it's revealed, Rozzy is revealing in trial that Libby's phone was messed with after the fact. So are they alleging Alan took her phone and then put it back? Or somebody else messed with it? Okay, BB wants to go over the previous voice match. Okay. Give me a second, I'll bring it up. There were a lot of early suspects that nobody talks about anymore. Again, I'm not saying that there was something to that. It's just kind of interesting. There's just so many suspects here. I mean, of course, Kelsey's constantly changing story. I mean, she said there were so many kids there when she initially dropped them off. I mean, how does... Okay, I understand people are extremely upset about missing murdered family members, but is it going to be the point, like, where you drop somebody off and there's nobody there, you're going to say there were dozens of people there? I mean, has that ever happened in any other case? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, nothing really adds up on any. There was supposedly at least 1 or 2 trail cameras also in the general area. What did they record? Why have we never heard anything from them? Oh, and I totally forgot. I was also going to mention the entire story of the gang, the woman who said her daughter was assaulted there that day, and there may have been other things going on there. And there was even this photograph. I'll bring it up in a second. I mean, there was also... Okay, and I don't even want to go down the rabbit holes of all of these cars. There was a red car reported, I think also a purple PT Cruiser, and a blue car. I mean, there were just so many cars reported initially in connection with this. I don't know if there's ever been complete resolutions on any of them. But there were also many different Weavers. Originally, John Weaver reported that the bodies were found in the water, and then there was, of course, this other Weaver. I went over this on episode 15, weaving a tangled web with all of these Weaver connections as well as connections to other crimes. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Not exactly, but, I mean, all the sketches still haven't quite adequately been explained, but there was also, of course, the account. YouTube's being really laggy right now. Give me a second. There was the CPS building, of course, and there were satellite images obtained. The CPS building, supposedly there was some kind of weird meeting there that particular day. Just another one of these coincidences. Just these endless coincidences of things that all went down that day. There was also the witness to the crime. I went over that. Some people think it was Keegan Klein who made some kind of anonymous report, but yeah, there's just so much here. I'm not going to go over the entire Delphi playlist. Those countless hours. But then there were, yeah, the Evansdale. So people believe there's an Evansdale connection too with the occult. I mean, there's so much here. There are also the underground tunnels that nobody wants to talk about in that area. Old Monon Railroad line. Interurban tunnel underneath the bridge, as well as many other tunnels. Some people think the CPS building has something to do with that. Sub Rosso, we got our triggered goof in the chat. I don't mind a conspiracy theory here and there, but Richard Allen is guilty. Y'all just can't accept that you are wrong even when you're proven wrong. Where's the proof, though? First of all. Second of all, I'm not saying he's innocent. So you gotta pay attention, Sub Rosa. I know these emotionally triggered goofs are just really, they have a hard time with basic English. Yeah, I didn't go over the voice thing yet, Truth Trollette. Someone matched a voice to a different guy. I will go over that. I just can't go over the entire playlist because there were so many anomalies here. But an unspent round from a gun that's not the murder weapon, and that is not evidence. That's proof. According to Sub Rosa, that's proof. According to Sub Rosa, proof is the FLIR drone not finding the bodies. Both sides of the creek searched without finding the bodies. The clothing that was found the following day not being found the initial afternoon, even by people that walked the exact path where it was eventually found. That's considered proof, according to Sub Rosa. Do you know how many people are found guilty in a court of law that are actually innocent, Sub Rosa? You've never heard of the Innocent Project? Really? How old are you? Are you a kid? He was, yes, many innocent people are found guilty in a court of law. It's supposed to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Nobody was claiming that goofy jurors who don't understand what beyond a reasonable doubt is wouldn't convict him. So if that was the claim, then yes, they were proven wrong. If they were claiming that no jurors would ever convict Richard Allen if he was innocent, then yes, they were proven wrong. But nobody was saying that. So, hold on. Are we doing the voice? No, there was one more thing I wanted to go over. For some reason, it's not coming up here, but give me a second. I still had a few episodes I did not release with even more anomalous information. Did we talk about this? I don't know if I talked about this. Everybody buckle up for this mind shot. So Google Maps shows that there was a Delphi, Indiana cop car near the Monon High Bridge on February 13th. That's interesting. If there was... Please give GPS. Someone was claiming this. I remember there was some hoopla made about this, and then it was never mentioned again. Now, they obviously do have... Well, and again, there was also the FBI agents on the ground before the crime ever occurred. So what were they investigating? Is this the tentacles that are being referred to? So, yeah, no, this was not the only mention of a cop car in the area at the time. Then, of course, you have Libby's phone pinging all over town, as reported. And then, as Rossi brought up at trial, someone was actually messing with the jack on her phone. Libby's phone was plugged into several hours after death. So, what are they alleging? That Richard Allen was hanging out at the crime scene the entire time, messing with her phone, or did he take her phone and then bring it back? Also, I noticed Sub Rosa, by these standards, there's no way to prove he's innocent or guilty because you'll just move the goalpost. Nobody's moving the goalpost here. Look at any other case where the guilty guy's actually guilty. They have fingerprints, they have the real murder weapon. I mean, they have an actual legitimate time of death, not FLIR drones showing that the bodies weren't there. I mean, come on, are you... Wow. Sub Rosa's really triggered. Sub Rosa says, I'll join you for a not stupid conversation. Well, you're the only one holding up the stupid side, because you're ignoring all the evidence, this mountain of evidence showing that the time of death appears to not be accurate. And you're just plugging in your ears, putting your head in the sand, and pretending other people are being stupid while ignoring all the actual information. You think in all these other legitimately found guilty cases that all they have is an unspent round from the not murder weapon? I mean, really? So, Sub Rosa, are you really that brain dead? You think nobody's ever falsely confessed to any crime? Really? That's, I mean, if you think that, you're the only one bringing stupid to this conversation, buddy. I mean, I'm actually going to go over the wrongful conviction and false confession stats in a moment, because there's a lot of brain dead goofs who hallucinate that nobody would ever confess to a crime they didn't commit, or that they couldn't be coerced. Because if people's families are threatened, I mean, you know, he's got a family, so even if he's innocent, obviously he'd confess if he really believed that these people would carry out their threats. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Well, Sub Rosa's just so triggered. I mean, he's, again, I don't know why. Sub Rosa's been around for a bit, so I thought there'd be a little bit more logical comprehension, but everyone's got their blind spots. I guess this is a blind spot for Sub Rosa. I mean, the thing is, it'd have to be such a massive blind spot, too, because it's not like this is an iffy case. I mean, this is clearly a miscarriage of justice, even if he's guilty. Even if he's completely guilty, there's no actual evidence here. And the height analysis that were done put the bridge guy at 5'10". So even with a 4-inch margin of error, Allen is still too short for that. So, but everything goes back to the timeline and the time of death. I mean, Sub Rosa, if you just got here, listen to the beginning of this. I went through all the information on the FLIR drone. I mean, you're going to ignore basic science. You're going to pretend algor mortis doesn't exist. You're going to pretend that dead bodies don't... There's no period of time before they start losing heat. And then once they do start losing heat, you're going to hallucinate and pretend it's not 1 to 1.5 degrees per hour. You're going to deny all science here? Sub Rosa, I never claimed he was innocent. I do claim injustice, because this is not justice. You can't convict people without evidence, even if they're guilty. That's how the justice system works. And also, if he is guilty, that doesn't mean he acted alone. So, even if he's guilty, letting everybody else off the hook because you're too dumb to look at evidence, even if he's guilty, that's still not justice, because then the other guilty parties are left off the hook. Again, this is not rocket science. I don't know why you're having so much trouble keeping up. I mean, this is not rocket science, people. I just wanted to go over one more point here before we get to... I mean, we didn't even get the flannel shirt guy. I mean, we went over that before, too. And remember at the beginning of the case, the whole catfish theory was poo-pooed by all the, by a lot of these brain-dead goofs, and... Turns out a lot of the early theories turn out to be true. The whole Anthony Schatz fiasco that was denied initially, for the people that have been following the case, that was all denied by the coincidence theorist bootlickers, the authority-worshipping cultist bootlickers like Sub Rosa. They see something reported, and they think it has to be true, and there's no possible corruption or cover-up in any way. So, yeah. And again, if Alan is innocent, then the true guilty parties are still out there. And Sub Rosa, people with Sub Rosa's lack of logic, they enable that. Sub Rosa, the verdict was beyond a reasonable doubt. He wasn't proven. Do you not know what the word proven means? Oh, do we really have to go to the dictionary for Sub Rosa? Sub Rosa's that brain dead? Proven means to establish the existence, truth, or validity of as by evidence or logic. Not 12 people giving an opinion. A verdict is not proof. A verdict is a verdict. So you don't know the difference between verdict and proof. So I thought you said you didn't want to participate in a stupid conversation and you don't know the difference between verdict and proof. Oh, man. Again, Sub Rosa, calm down. I mean, your triggered spiral is going crazy. Sub Rosa's going crazy in the chat. Is Koberger innocent too? And Rex Homerman, is he innocent? Is everyone innocent? All law enforcement involved in a conspiracy to frame innocent people? Who said that there's a conspiracy? It could just be incompetence. Again, calm down, goofball. Calm down. He was not proven. 12 people gave their opinion. That's not proof. Okay, I'll put the definition on the screen because Sub Rosa's having so much trouble. He thinks people's opinions are proof. Can you get any dumber? Man, you're really bringing the stupid hard. You're bringing the stupid hard here. A person's opinion is not proof. Now, if you have the proof, now maybe they listened to actual proof. Do you have it? I'd like to hear it. I'd like to hear it. An unspent round from not the murder weapon. That's what they brought to the courtroom as far as we know. Did they bring anything else? Maybe, maybe not. Here, I'll put the definition on the screen because Sub Rosa's having a meltdown here because This goof's not even in a first grade English level talking to people about a conversation that's not stupid while bringing the stupid. So here you go. Straight from Webster. To establish the existence, truth, or validity of as by evidence or logic. So where's the evidence? You have the unspent round from not the murder weapon, and you have a confession. You have a human's words. You have words. You know, anybody can say anything. You think that's proof? So Subro says that mentally disabled, he just said in the chat, he or she, I don't know, found guilty is proof. But if that's proof, then how are all these wrongful convictions overturned? If it was actual proof, if it was truth, how is truth overturned? How is truth not truth? So in all these countless cases of wrongful convictions getting overturned, so that means the truth wasn't the truth? I mean, I'd like to hear your mental gymnastics spiral on this. I'd like to see you cope with this, because that a verdict is an opinion. I mean, if you're too brain dead to understand that, I mean, you probably shouldn't even be on this channel. Sub Rosa is just spamming strawman fallacies now. And appeal to extreme logical fallacies. Sub Rosa, if you don't even know the difference between a person's opinion and evidence and logic, you shouldn't even be here. I mean, why are you here? This is a channel about actual logic. I have a couple things I wanted to go over. Nino Aldo said, yeah, there were a lot of exonerated post-mortem, too. Years as they improved. Yeah, that's the other thing that brain-dead goofs like Sub Rosa can't fathom. Because even if they had DNA evidence of Alan at the scene, that still doesn't mean anything, because the test could be faulty. Because newer generation DNA tech exonerates, a lot of people are exonerated that were found guilty by either fingerprint matches or DNA matches that were later found by better technology to have been false. Sub Rosa, spot on projection, Sub Rosa. Sub Rosa saying, what you're doing and saying is hurtful to the families of the victims. First of all, let's say it is hurtful. If it finds the true killers, then so what? Like, is there an expectation of civility? Like, this is a channel about truth and justice. Now, if they're that emotional, because a lot of families, they just want someone punished, and they're not necessarily thinking rationally, because they're, obviously, they went through a trauma. And it's very sad. But, you know, the truth will set you free, you know? Having people guilty, innocent people, pretending they're guilty like you're doing, if he is in fact innocent and not guilty. Or even if he's guilty and there are other guilty parties, what you're doing. Sub Rosa still melting down here. What percent of people are found innocent after being convicted? 1 in a million? Well, it's a lot more than that, buddy. You're that brain dead you don't even know? So you're spiraling here, proving your mental deficiency. I mean, do you like humiliating yourself? Percentage is quite high, actually. I'm going to go over the actual stats. I just wanted to go over a couple more things with this case. Sub Rosa says, I'm asking you, bro. Well, if you don't know, why are you proving how dumb you are? Because if you knew, maybe you should reserve justice. Well, even your question is malformed. Okay, here's what I was looking for. Alright, well, let me finish this, then I'll get to the actual stats, because that's what I was going to close with anyway. You just kind of derailed this conversation with your stupidity in hallucinating that a person's opinion is the same thing as actual proof. I mean, the level of goofery you brought to this, I mean, it's kind of crazy. How are you a MINDSHOCK listener? Because you've been around for a bit. Like, I don't understand why you're here if you're that allergic to basic logic that you think the opinion of people and the words of humans are synonymous with actual truth. Not proven guilty. Ruled guilty. Judged guilty. Again, I have the literal definition of proof on the screen, and you're still too mentally disabled. Can you repeat the definition back? Are you too dumb? No, not proven guilty. It's actually quite a bit higher than that, Tiara. I'm gonna go over it in a moment. But brain dead goofs like Sub Rosa, it's so weird. Like the people on the jury are just random people picked from the middle from the population. Do you really think that random jurors are just these extraordinary smart people? Now, in many cases, they don't need to be smart. So, if, like, for example, there was CCTV placing him, like, if you actually have a real time of death, which you don't have in this case, like, you're asking if everybody's innocent in prison. Of course not. There's the majority are more than 50% have been convicted legitimately. Now we're going to get to the exact delineation of how much more than 50%. Might not be that much more, but more than 50% have been convicted on beyond a reasonable doubt criteria, because there might be CCTV placing them. First of all, there's a real time of death, because I mean that's one of the common denominators in all legitimate convictions. You have an actual time of death. You actually have scientific evidence, either fingerprints, you have a murder weapon. You may not have a confession. In a lot of these definitive convictions, there is no confession. They still claim they're innocent. You know, there's video placing them at the scene of the crime, again, which the scene of the crime with the time of death with an established timeline, not the opposite of an established timeline. But if you're too brain dead to know that. Sub Rosa, it's actually way more than 5%. Instead of having your mental health spiral and tantrum here at being having your cluelessness completely exposed, why don't you just go on Google and look it up? I think Sub Rosa needs a timeout. This goose looks like he's about to have a conniption, just melting down and having the goofery exposed. I put the goof in a 5-minute timeout because we got to stay on track here. That goof is spiraling, derailing this whole podcast because he doesn't know what the definition of prove means. Wow, crazy. All right, so, but even if it was a lot less than 5%, even if it was 0.1%, I mean, the point would still stand. Like, this Sub Rosa is too brain dead to understand that this could be one of the 0.5. I'm not saying it is, but, well, I mean, I am saying it's a wrongful conviction. I'm not saying that he's innocent, though. So that's what the Sub Rosa goof is too brain dead to understand. All right, so the one account I wanted to go over before we get to the previously matched voice analysis, because again, as technology improves, that's the other point, because even people convicted on real evidence, a small percentage, probably closer to, it's probably below 5% for the people convicted on DNA evidence. Well, actually, no, it's not. I went over that before, too. Oh, man, we got a lot to go over. But, all right, hold on. There's so much here. I wonder if Sub Rosa is going to come back after their timeout. Maybe they calm down a little bit. But that's the thing. When people are emotionally driven, like Sub Rosa, like, they have no actual logic. Like, the goof is actually disputing the empirically verifiable definition in the dictionary of proven. Like, the goof is that brain dead. They're disputing the definition of proven, so they keep using words that they don't know the definition of, while claiming they don't want to be part of a stupid conversation when they're the ones bringing all the stupid. All right, so this was reported, again, I don't know whether this has to do with this particular case, but these images were released. I'm going to play the clip from the MINDSHOCK podcast regarding these images here. sourced from law enforcement or the media. So, found them free. So this photo, drunk driving offender, he has a grudge against local law enforcement. The suspect's political beliefs are quite liberal. He comes across as a sort of aging hippie type, unusual for Indiana. Suspect role in the investigation. The suspect has inserted himself deeply in the investigation to an almost unprecedented degree. He is now one of the most well-known people who are trying to find the killer. In part, this is being done to try to divert attention away from himself, but another factor seems to be narcissism, possibly even malignant narcissism, which means he can't help himself. He also loves the limelight, the sound of his own voice, is something of a publicity hound, likes the idea that he is hiding right under the noses of everyone and getting away with it, and thinks this is some sort of joke. The suspect's attitude toward the investigation is hard to figure. We believe he is nervous and fearful of being caught, but also sees the whole thing as a hilarious game of cat and mouse. He's fooling law enforcement and all of society. Did not make much. I don't know. And how did they determine that? Either way, continuing on here, despite the red herring and the dead end regarding the photo above, we are hearing that more people are coming forward saying that they say a white late model Dodge Dart with paper plates at the bridge around the time of the crimes, but no photos have emerged yet of this vehicle at Monon Bridge that day. So did this woman simply have an ex-husband that also had a white Dodge Dart? I mean, that's not the most rare vehicle in the world. Although it wasn't incredibly popular either. In 2012, there were 25,303 Dodge Darts sold. In 2013, there were 83,388. In 2014, 83,858. In 2015, 87,392. In 2016, 44,050. And in 2017, 10,082. So yeah, it's not that popular either. Now, what percentage of those were white? Apparently, there were only 12 colors. There were 2 white colors, bright white and bright silver. So the whites were roughly 12.25% of global production numbers, for example, in 2013. So somewhere between 10 to 15% white. So yeah, it's not the rarest car, but it's also not a Camry or Corolla either. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's something there, and it's definitely worth pursuing. It's rare enough to the point where there might not be tens of thousands of them or even thousands of them. I mean, there's probably a limited number of white late model Dodge Darts in the Delphi area at the time. So perhaps there is something there. I don't know. Now, if this woman who wanted to get back at her ex, if her ex happened to have one of these white Dodge Darts, did she take that opportunity to try to make life difficult for him? Who knows? You know what would be kind of crazy if he really was involved, but she didn't know that, and she was just trying to make his life difficult because she didn't like him. That would be truly mind-shocking. But okay, so let's continue on here. There are different stories regarding the woman who took these photos and the man in the photo. The woman was reportedly shown a number of photos of different men and asked if any of them were the man with the white car. When shown a photo of our suspect, the woman supposedly pulled her car over to the side of the road, leaned out the car door, and vomited. So she had a very violent, involuntary reaction to a photo of our suspect. However, before this happened, she was shown a number of photos of possible persons who the man by the white car might be, and the woman was saying yes to all of them. Obviously, they are not all the man by the white car. Unfortunately, this witness has serious credibility issues. Okay. More about the home where the photo was taken. Unfortunately, this woman's home and life's involvement in this tale is not over. The day before the killings, 2 persons came over to visit her daughter. These persons... Okay, the 2 picked her up and took off to go to the woods by the bridge supposedly to cook up methamphetamine. Okay. Alright, so if this is all true, is the coincidence stack kind of crazy? So this woman, now she's not named, and the day before the murders, two people come over to visit her daughter and they just randomly go near the Monon High Bridge to cook meth. The next day, this random guy with a white Dodge Dart, who happens to be her ex-husband, is at her house. I mean, I don't know. What's going on here? We're going really far into MINDSHOCK land now. The notion that there were meth cookers in the woods that afternoon led to all sorts of what I call the meth theory. Most involved these dealers and cookers, and apparently the three people above, killing the two girls for all sorts of possible reasons, mostly that the girls happened upon the meth cooking operation. These theories in general are no good, and I reject all of them. Nevertheless, over the period of between 2 and 12 a.m. and between 2:12, 2:15, these three were gone and were reportedly cooking meth at some point during this time frame. But it's not exactly known when or where. All of these people were high out of their minds on meth and heroin for 3 days, and all used a benzodiazepine that is known for pretty much erasing your memory. The daughter came home late on 2/15, beaten up, and complained that she had been beaten and gang raped and at some point over this period. Okay, wow. So there are people cooking meth in the woods near the bridge. There's all these possible assaults and rapes going on, all within these 2 days. This is really bizarre. People thought this may have happened in the woods, maybe when the girls were being killed. But this gang rape probably occurred elsewhere, probably in someone's home. So it's just randomly happening at the same time that Libby and Abby are being killed. At the same time, there is rumored to be a photo of men on their knees with their pants down, kneeling around the body of a naked woman. For some time, people wondered if this was a photo of what was done to the girls, but now it appears that if this photo exists, it depicts this gang rape of this woman's daughter and not any rape or murder of the girls. Weird. Okay, so this woman's daughter was reportedly a willing partner in the gang rape, as it was done as a gang initiation to initiate her into some gang. Now, what does willing mean? If they're all on meth out of their minds, is she able to knowingly consent? If they're all on meth? I mean, I don't know. Doesn't that impair your judgment to the point that you would technically not be able to legally consent to something? The gang appears to be an Aryan Brotherhood white supremacist organization, but it is not the Aryan Brotherhood. Instead, it is some local group not affiliated with them. After the initiation, this woman's daughter became the property of the gang, and they could do whatever they wanted to her. They could sell her, give her away to other people, force her to prostitute herself, all sorts of things. That definitely sounds like a gang you want to join, right? As a result of the gang rape in which this other individual probably participated, the woman's daughter was given to this individual by the gang, her boyfriend, for the next 6 weeks, but apparently she was forced into this relationship. When she returned home, the woman called the police on all of them. And one of these individuals was arrested that day, February 15th, on meth charges. In the aftermath of the 3-day ordeal, the woman's daughter reportedly confessed in part to the murder of the girls. Okay, so is this one of the reasons why law enforcement has been relatively tight-lipped? If there's some kind of meth ring gang with all of this going on and they were so high on drugs they don't know exactly what happened, and they're confessing but there's no evidence, what would law enforcement do in that situation? Would they release this evidence to the public or not? This is kind of bizarre. So this woman's daughter, the woman who apparently took a photo of her ex-husband with this white Dodge Dart, her daughter is supposedly part of this meth ring gang operation. So she reportedly confessed in part to the murder of the girls. She stated that she wanted to know what it felt like to stab someone, so she stabbed someone. She did not know who she stabbed, when, or where. Now, here's the crazy part. If these people really are on meth, completely out of their minds, and they're just these black spots in their memory and they truly can't remember, wow, I mean, this is crazy. Would that occur for the case not being able to be solved? But the problem is, what about the evidence? Wouldn't there be physical evidence of this if it really did occur? Furthermore, all of their minds were as good as erased for the 3-day period due to the benzo ingestion. I am not sure if her confession has been turned into the police. So I guess she confessed to someone else, not the... Okay, so maybe the police don't know this? Okay, or it was reported to the police, they didn't take it seriously. Is that a possibility? We believe this is a false confession, the result of a beating, a gang rape, and 3 days of heavy drug use. Anyway, she has no details about the stabbing. Furthermore, she does not seem capable of murdering these girls. The individuals she was with are pretty lousy men, but from what I know about them, I can't see them murdering these girls, especially for no particular reason. The woman has been interviewed by both the FBI and the Indiana State Police. Huh. We do not know what has come of this, but our information is that law enforcement does not believe the meth theory of the murders is a valid hypothesis. As far as this woman's daughter goes, at some point she was sold to a man up in Wisconsin. She had to go up there and live with this man, who bought her for a month or so. Later she was in rehab. This woman makes a lot of dubious choices, has terrible friends, and has gotten herself into a heap of trouble, but I don't think she's a murderer. Okay, the actual murders, rumors. The following consists of a number of rumors about how the girls were killed. Most of these rumors have not yet been validated and should be taken with a huge grain of salt. However, the rumors in italics are apparently true to the best of our knowledge. Okay, so we went over these previously. Okay, all of the... Okay, so that was the story with the Dodge Dart and the whole meth ring in the woods. Now, apparently it has been corroborated that there were people cooking meth in the general area. I still don't know if they ever nailed down the exact day, but so the state police and the FBI were deeply connected to this testimony. So if there was a connection with Odinists, Satanists, or this meth ring, and they wanted to sweep it under the rug, clearly they could have. And you know what's crazy? Like a lot of brain-dead goofs like Sub Rosa and these coincidence theorists are saying, oh, well, this witness isn't credible. But if this is all true, if her story is true, and she was part of this meth ring and on drugs and being abused, I mean, her recollection would be foggy. Are we expecting her to have perfect recall on exact time, for like the exact time of everything and location? I mean, if this was all a haze, a drug-induced haze, isn't that what we would expect if it were true? Yeah, I mean, Subrosa says he's been a listener of MindShock for years, but somehow too brain-dead to even pick up the definition of logic? I mean, wow. Imagine listening for that long to a podcast about logic and still not being able to define logic. I mean, is that kind of like watching a sport for years and years and you still don't know the rules? Oh man, imagine watching the NFL for so many years and you can't even you don't even know what NFL stands for. I mean, that's what we're dealing with some Rose. Okay, let's move on here. So a lot of information early on, swept under the rug, never referenced or explained ever again. For the last time, Sub Roses, nobody's a Rick Allen fan, dummy. I mean, wow. We're in agreement on everything. We're not even in agreement on the definition of prove. You think an opinion verdict is the same thing as truth. That's how brain dead you are. And then you're hallucinating people are Rick Allen fans. Alright, Sub Rosa. Okay, Sub Rosa's gonna need a longer timeout this time. because the goof is still hallucinating that an opinion verdict is the same. I'm going to leave this definition of prove on the screen, so the goof got sent to the dunce corner again. Because too brain dead to understand that an opinion verdict, he was found guilty, found by 12 jurors on their opinion. So prove means establish the existence, truth, or validity of as by evidence or logic. So what evidence or logic has Sub Rosa presented thus far to the guilt of Richard Allen? He also keeps calling him Rick Allen for some reason. It sounds like he's the Richard Allen lover. It's like Rick Allen. He's even calling him by the endearing abbreviation. Yeah, I wish there was a way to time out people without having their messages removed, because we could learn a lot from the Dunning-Kruger goofer. Like, Sub Rosa says he's been here for years. We've been using the comments and chat of Dunning-Kruger goofs to point out their logicality for years, and he just became one of them. He or she, I don't know. Sub Rosa really has been around for a while. I mean, I don't know why they got this triggered. I mean, imagine being this triggered you forget preschool level English. I mean, that's wacky. That's wacky. All right, what are we going over next? The voice. So, all right, let's see here. There was a pretty close voice match in the early days. There were so many suspects early on, too. All right, let's see here. All right. See if I can find it. It was one of the earlier episodes. Oh, I got it. It was literally episode 1. Wow. Okay. Okay. It was literally episode 1. Indicated that on behalf of state police and the there's a watch on July threat back, and it has a similar cap and jacket. Okay, that's nation's. And also, I'll be going more into these theories later too. Is it typical to try to kill 2 people at once? Because if one, and again, the area, supposedly, if there's only one way out from the area, I don't know. It's just, the whole thing's a bit bizarre. Okay. Also, on April 22nd, law enforcement reached out to the public, urging all to look at the sketch, listen to the audio, watch how this coward walks on the Hyde Bridge, and send your tip to this email. Investigate. The email is Abby and Libby tip at CACOSHRF.com. Investigators revealed that they have reason to believe that the suspect might well be hiding in plain sight, and that the person is almost certainly familiar with the area of Delphi, whether it be from living or working there, or for another reason. An additional plea was made for help in identifying the driver of a vehicle left abandoned off the Hoosier Heartland Highway in Delphi at the former Child Services office between noon and 5 p.m. on the day of the murders. And also from these sketches, it looks like there could have been 2 individuals in that area in that time frame. One with an older man with a goatee, and then the younger individual. Okay. Persons of interest: Paul Etter. On July 23rd, 2019, after receiving a tip, authorities announced that Paul Etter was being considered a person of interest in the murders. Etter was wanted for the kidnapping and rape of a 26-year-old woman on June 22nd in Tippecanoe County. 5 days later, Etter was surrounded by police, and after a 5-hour standoff, he committed suicide. So this is going to lead into one of my theories too, that if the person in the video is the murderer, were they able to definitively verify that it was not Paul Etter? Because if this individual is already dead, or it's already one of their known suspects, then are they looking for other people? And how do they know with certainty that these current persons of interest can't be ruled out or definitively ruled in? Because if it's definitely one of these guys, are they still looking for other people? Again, a lot of curiosities that need to be addressed. Daniel J. Nations, a registered sex offender from Indiana, was arrested in Woodland Park, Colorado in September 2017 and charged with threatening strangers on a monument trail with a hatchet. The expired Indiana plates on the car Nations was driving was noticed by police, who subsequently discovered an outstanding warrant under his name. Fanning public speculation still further, it was reported that a bicyclist had been fatally shot on the same trail at around the time that Nations was purportedly terrifying passerbys. An El Paso County Sheriff's spokesman told reporters that however many similarities there were between the cases, he was not at liberty to disclose them since Indiana investigators did not want any more information released. On January 5th, 2018, Nations was sentenced to 3 years of probation for threatening members of the public in Colorado. However, he was not released since he had an active warrant on him back in Indiana. On January 24th, Nations was finally transferred to Indiana officials' custody on an unrelated charge, failure to register as a sex offender. In early February 2018, authorities said that Nations was no longer considered an active person of interest in the Delphi murders. Thomas Bruce, who formerly worked as a pastor, is charged with fatally shooting one woman and sexually assaulting 2 others after having ordered them at gunpoint into the back room of a suburban St. Louis shop for religious supplies. Committed in broad daylight on November 19th, 2018, these crimes put Bruce in the spotlight of the press. Some noted his being of similar stature, 5'7" to 5'9", to the then-current suspect description of the Delphi slangs. Also, his wearing a flat cap and a navy blue jacket during this attack, not unlike the suspect in the Delphi case. Indiana State Police did look into his possible connection in November. On December 4th, Bruce was charged with no fewer than 17 felony counts related to the St. Louis case and could receive the death penalty. The thing that, so if he has a similar cap and jacket, that's nice, but what jumps out at me is that he's assaulting more than one person at the same time in broad daylight. I mean, is there an MO here? And if he's brazen enough to do that with adult women, so this is the Catholic Supply shooting. This happened November 19th, 2018. This was at a strip mall. It says, in St. Louis County, Missouri, sexually assaulted 2 women, shot another in the head when she refused to undress at his command before leaving the store. He's doing this in the middle of the day, and he's not afraid to, if this guy's not afraid to try to attack, assault more than one adult, why would he for a minor? And apparently he also did home invasions. Wow, that's really messed up. He was also charged with invading the home of a 77-year-old woman near Hillsborough on September 27th, 2018, kidnapping, sexually abusing, assaulting, and robbing her. And he does face the death penalty. I couldn't find a photo of him wearing a cap to see the effect on his face, but people have done voice analyses. This is from the YouTube channel of Michael Catt, K-A-T-T.
I am a citizen. You work for me. Okay, all right? Do you understand that? I don't work for you. Or yes, you do. I pay your taxes, and you do not work for me. Step back. Well, then you step back. All right, you're going to stand right there, and I'm going to stand right here. Where do you want to stand? Right here. There.
Now let's compare his voice to that of the Delphi suspect to see if we see any similarities between the two.
Yes, you do. I pay your taxes. Well, then you step back. I am a citizen. You work for me.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because he's kind of yelling at the police officer there, and he's not really yelling when he's saying down the hill. Sounds relatively calm. Obviously, the guy would have to be unhinged if he was planning to kill them and is just ordering them around in such a nonchalant fashion. Very, very disturbing. But just looking at the photographs, I don't know. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's her. And he does face the death penalty.
Then you work for me. Okay. All right? Do you understand that? I don't work for you. Or yes, you do. I pay your taxes, and you do not work for me. Step back. Well, then you step back. All right, you're going to stand right there, and I'm going to stand right here. Where do you want to stand? Right here. There.
Now let's compare his voice to that of the Delphi suspect to see if we see any similarities between the two.
Yes, you do. I pay your taxes. Well, then you step back. I am a citizen. You work for me.
Yeah, it sounds very similar, but something else I noticed. Look at the way even though he's walking backwards here, look at the way he's walking. He appears to have some kind of impairment on his leg as well. Alright, hold on. Let's match this up with the video. I haven't done this before. He walks backwards, so it's not apples to apples, but it looks like there is some kind of an impairment. Here's a motion adjusted video. It does look like something, and Ron Logan also has this kind of impairment on a leg, just the way he walks. But let's watch Bruce here. Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to tell. He also could be drunk there, but. But that was the voice. It sounds very similar. Ron Logan also sounds similar, but there's not that many people that sound similar, that gravelly type voice. It's definitely distinct. Now, also, we don't know if the phone was in... I mean, we don't even know how legitimate that recording even is, but... Also, another point here... Let's, Another point here, in terms of the testimony, there was a group of 4 that said they saw Alan, but Alan said he saw 3 girls. There wasn't a group of 3 girls on the trail, though. He said he saw 1 older girl and 2 younger girls. So even his own testimony doesn't even match up. So, I mean, can we trust anything he says? I mean, it just, nothing really adds up about any of this. It's just weird. And also, like, a lot of the descriptions don't even add up. Here's a post on Reddit. It would be remarkable for the group of girls and Richard Allen to be on the same path at the same time, walking towards each other, and Richard Allen would pass an entirely different group of girls and vice versa. And neither of them passed any other person. That could reasonably happen, question mark. Yeah, I mean, none of this makes any sense. This is really weird. Another post here. The two girls from that group were called to the stand. They were not asked to identify Richard Allen as being the man they saw that day. They were only asked questions about who they saw, and the state was hoping the jury would jump to the conclusion that the man they saw was both Allen and Bridge Guy. And of course, brain-dead goofs like Sub Rosa in the chat and his ilk, Sub Rosa's ilk that support miscarriages of justice and innocent people in prison and guilty people unpunished for their crimes, they just can't follow the basic logic of the tricks that the prosecution uses. Now again, that doesn't mean Allen is innocent, but this is just the basic logic of what can and can't be proven. And of course, nobody said that Bridge Guy was a really short guy. Allen is 5'4". That's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. And also, the law enforcement and investigators intentionally not ordering a height analysis. I mean, that's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. Because even if the height analysis is within a 4-inch margin of error, that could still disqualify Allen from being the guy in the video. If the video is even legit. So no witness claimed to have seen someone matching Allen's description. Some witnesses said 5'10", muscular guy, between 20 and 30 years of age, with poofy blonde hair. Wow. I mean, wow. And again, brain-dead goofs like Sub Rosa think this is all above board. Not that witness testimony is reliable, but it doesn't even match anyway. We don't even get to the point where the witness testimony matches Allen. We don't even get there. We don't even get there in order to rule it out based on being reliable, because it doesn't even match anyway. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, this is really crazy. And again, if they definitively saw Allen, and then with all the media hoopla around the case, they just happened to never go to CVS, and they happened to never see him around town in a town with a population of not even 3,000 people over the course of years and years and years. I mean, wow. So I don't know what to make about that, but let's get to the false confessions here to round this out, because a lot of goofs hallucinate that it is impossible that Allen falsely confessed. Absolutely impossible. Truth Trollette in the chat saying, so seems Sub Rosa may hate everyone associated with secret societies, therefore all in one is guilty no matter what. Emotionally triggered goof. Justin Johnson in the house. Pinto Sack in the house. Pinto Sack says, any chance they will release the full Bridge Encounter videos? Supposedly, from what I remember of what was initially reported, the phone was put in a jacket pocket, and only audio was recorded, and there is almost maybe a minute of audio of the attack. I don't know if that's ever been corroborated, and I don't know why anybody would trust that that's even real. I don't know. And if it was recorded, if there was a break in the recording, was that recorded somewhere else, like a barn, for example, and not in the alleged crime scene? So maybe it is real, but it wasn't at the so-called official crime scene. So who knows? Who knows? So before we get into the stats, I just want to bring up this example. And goofs like Sub Rosa, if this happened to them, they would be crying for logical people to come save them and not believe the cops. I mean, this, of course, is the famous case. I posted about this before. I haven't done a full podcast on it, though, but... So nearly $900,000 was paid for psychological torture inflicted by police to get a false confession. I mean, this is insane, because this guy was tortured. Thomas Perez Jr. rips his shirt off during a police interrogation in the suspected killing of his father, who had been reported missing but was later found alive. So can you imagine, like, they made this guy, they tortured this guy, they made this innocent guy confess, but there wasn't even a victim. I mean, this is the level of goofery. I mean, the brain-dead goofery that Sub Rosa supports, because there wasn't even a body. There wasn't even a confirmed, there was no confirmed murder. There's no confirmed body. And they're already getting the guy to confess to his father's murder, which never occurred in the first place. Isn't that weird? I mean, this isn't... I don't even want to go over the video because it's so disturbing. But again, you got these brain-dead goofs doing a disservice to just all of humanity. Like, Sub Rosa is a disgrace to humanity, freedom, and liberty, and the American spirit in general. An absolute disgrace. Supporting false confessions, wrongful convictions, and hallucinating that it has to be such a small 1 in a million percentage, and it's not rampant. Because keep in mind, these ones that are found out about, we only hear about the ones that are found out about. So the numbers are obviously way higher. Sovereign Searcher in here. What happened with the Sub Rosa? Sub Rosa is just a goof. He's been around for years, too, he or she. I don't know, they just had a mental breakdown in the chat earlier, pretending that we all love Rich Allen just because, and I'm not even saying Rich Allen is innocent. I mean, the brain-dead goof just was going into conniptions that anybody could be questioning the opinion verdict of these 12 jurors. So, yeah, but anyway. Alright, let's get into the stats here. So... And again, Sub Rosa hallucinating that, again, an opinion is somehow proof, and that, you know, exonerations don't occur. You can go to falseconfessions.org. They have the facts and figures all here. I'll go over it here. Police, and by the way, all the sources are right on their page here. Police-induced false confessions are among the leading causes of wrongful convictions. Since the late 80s, 6 studies alone documented approximately 250 interrogation-induced false confessions. So according to Sub Rosa, he's claiming 1 in a million. So 1 in a million, so that there would have to be 250 million murder convictions for Sub Rosa's hallucinations to be true. Now, the population in the 80s was, I don't think it was even 300 million in the 80s. Let's see here. Yeah, it was 226 million. So Oh man, the brain dead goofery. So by, let's say, 87, it was 242. It wasn't even 250 million. So every single person in the entire United States population would have to have been convicted of murder in order for it to be a 1 in a million rate, like Sub Rosa hallucinating. I mean, imagine the brain dead goofery. That's why. Is Sub Rosa still in here, or did the goof run away after his longer time out? I had to put the goof in a longer time. Oh, it's showing that Sub Rosa is still here, typing in their name. So Sub Rosa's just muted for X period of time. Yes, Sub Rosa hallucinated it was 1 a million, but there were 6 studies that documented 200, and those are only the ones they found out about. Again, imagine, I mean, they obviously couldn't have checked every single conviction. So they were able to find 250 when the population of the United States wasn't even 250 million. I mean, again, that's why I wanted Sub Rosa to stick around, so the brain dead goof can actually see the extent of their brain dead goofery. So this is 6 studies here. And not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5. 6 studies. And again, you can find all this out. Center Wrongful Convictions. This is law.northwestern.edu. Problem False Confessions in America. Criminaljustice.org. Truthaboutfalseconfessions.com. The Drum Major Institute, drummajorinstitute.org/library. All of these sources are on falseconfessions.org, so these government sources, and EDU and universities doing studies. Okay. In Badal and Radalet's 1987 study, false confessions were the 3rd leading cause of wrongful. And keep in mind, these are 250 interrogation-induced false confessions. This does not include all the other false confessions, all the other wrongful convictions that didn't feature false confessions. So these 250 are only wrongful convictions based on false confessions. They do not include all the other countless wrongful convictions based on faulty DNA evidence, etc. I'll actually put that on the screen too. I went over it on the Stephen Avery podcast because a lot of brain dead goofs thought that Stephen Avery is definitively guilty. Let me just get the stat on. Okay, hold on a second here. Okay, so on JSTOR.org, you can see here, very interesting article. And this doesn't even include crime lab corruptions, which I guess we should probably touch upon that, but we don't really have time. I don't want to get into that. We'll just stick with the DNA. We'll just stick with DNA and false confessions for now. I mean, we don't want to completely overwhelm Sub Rosa and all these other brain dead goofs, but this article goes over faulty DNA evidence. So we had all these DNA matches that turn out to not really be matches. So it's claimed to be 99.9% when it's actually not. So even full DNA profiles may match with a person other than the culprit. So not only are partial profiles, but even full profiles can still have an error rate. So that's why the American Bar Association even reported on this. Sense About Science collaborated on a report, senseaboutscience.org. For example, in 2011, Adam Scott's DNA matched with a sperm sample taken from a rape victim in Manchester, a city Scott, who lived more than 200 miles away, never even visited. And so, again, that was a famous case. Yeah, and Sub Rosa's attitude would definitely be different if he was one of these people who was matched up and hallucinating that mistakes or corruption doesn't exist. And again, this is straight from JSTOR. For those that don't know what JSTOR is, it is a non-profit library here. Digital library of academic journals. So this isn't somebody's GeoCities blog. This is people who are involved in research and science and tech. All of these academic journals are posted here as well. Quote, "There's the uncomfortable and inconvenient truth that any of us could have DNA present at a crime scene, even if we were never there." Moreover, DNA recovered at a crime scene could have been deposited there at a time other than when the crime took place, like, for example, an unspent shell casing. Someone could have visited before or stumbled upon the scene afterwards. Alternatively, their DNA could have arrived via a process called secondary transfer, where their DNA was transferred to someone else who carried it to the scene. So again, and we don't even have real DNA evidence in the case of Richard Allen. So again, we're not even there. We don't even get there. But brain dead goofs hallucinate that, you know, DNA evidence is 100%. Clearly, it's not 100%. And you know, and confessions are far from 100%. So in Bedell and Radelet's 1987 study, false confessions were the third leading cause of wrongful conviction. In Warden's 2003 study, they were the single leading cause. Police-induced false confessions appear to occur primarily in the more serious cases, especially homicides and other high-profile felonies. More than 80% of the 125 false confessions documented by Professors Steve Drizin and Richard Leo occurred in homicide cases. False confessions make for the leading cause of wrongful convictions in homicide cases. More than 2/3 of DNA-cleared homicide cases documented by the Innocent Project were caused by false confessions. That's interesting. There have been 317 post-conviction DNA exonerations in the U.S. And imagine how much overwhelming evidence, the money it took to do that. And look, and the amount of people that are still waiting to get theirs that are innocent. So 317 doesn't sound like a lot, but those are only the ones that have fully been exonerated, and obviously countless more are waiting to be. Now, there's a lot of roadblocks, like they don't have the funds to do the lab retesting. They're blocked by courts to even do it and pursue it. So it's kind of a miracle that even those went through. So, yeah. Flat Bob says, "My uncle was a cop. He said every cop does good and bad, some more than others. And in today's society, I feel a lot of law enforcement officers only get the job so they can do shady dealing and bully people." Big Pine Sailing says, "Thought I knew a good cop, then I found out he turned off his body cam so his buddy could try to murder a guy. Shot him 3 times, he survived, then he lied on the stand." That's dark. Yeah, that's dark. Flat Bob says, "Usually the people in the higher-ups are almost always into some shady expletive and cover for other officers' wrongdoings and sweep stuff under the rug." Pinto Sack, the whole Delphi playlist will be back shortly, as well as all of them. I'm almost done with the archive. Okay, so let's continue with this fact sheet. Exonerations have been won in 38 states. Since 2000, there have been 250 exonerations. regarding regarding false confessions. In about 30% of DNA exoneration cases, innocent defendants made incriminating statements, delivered outright confessions, or pled guilty. That's curious. So in DNA exoneration, where eventually the DNA was proven to prove their innocence, in 30% of all the DNA exoneration cases, the innocent defendants also made incriminating statements, delivered outright confessions, or even pled guilty. I mean, that's insane. Sub Rosa would lose his mind. Sub Rosa, are you still here? 30% of known innocent people pled guilty in these exonerated cases. 30% of all of the exonerated cases in all of these hundreds of cases. Is Sub Rosa still here, or is the goof going into conniptions? And again, the sources here for brain dead goofs like Sub Rosa, this is, there's 6 different studies. The ones referenced so far were Badeau and Radlitz's 1987 study, Warden's 2003 study, Professor Steve Drizin and Richard Leo's study. 18 of the 258 people exonerated through DNA served time on death row, so they got to him just in time. The average length of time served by exonerates is 13.5 years. The average age of exonerees at the time of their wrongful convictions is 27. 92% of false confessors are men. The most common basis for exoneration was the real perpetrator was identified in 74% of cases, or that new scientific evidence was discovered 46% of cases. Like, for example, the DNA that didn't match, could effectively rule them out. 63% of false confessors were under the age of 25, 32% were under 18, yet of all persons arrested for murder and rape, only 8 and 16% are juveniles. 22% were mentally retarded, and 10% had a diagnosed mental illness. So maybe Sub Rosa would falsely confess as well. Multiple false confessions to the same crime were obtained in 30% of cases, wherein one false confession was used to prompt others. Yeah, that's crazy. That's another thing, brain dead goose like Sub Rosa. Even in cases where someone's convicted, like the jury finds them guilty, there were other people who also falsely confessed. I mean, that's crazy. Big Pine Sailing says, I've spent 2 weeks in jail for telling a cop I was sick and took cough medicine in the morning. They screwed up my processing. I didn't get a phone call for over 3 days, couldn't get bailed out. Was there a lawsuit after that? In 2009, brought 22 new cases of DNA exonerations of people wrongfully convicted. And I also believe this is an old website, so I don't know if this is up to date. In 2009, 22 new cases, DNA exonerations of people wrongly convicted. The overall total is 258. The Innocent Projects reports that roughly 25% had given false confessions. Among a total of 340 exonerations of all kinds documented between 1989 and 2003, 15% involved false confessions. Of the 24 exonerations in New York State, 13 have been based upon false confession. 2/3 of murder convictions overturned by DNA evidence turned out to have been based on false confessions. Over 850 jurisdictions nationwide, including the states of Alaska, Minnesota, and Illinois, regularly record police interrogations. According to a report by the Northwestern University School of Law, after speaking with hundreds of police jurisdictions, the researchers found that, quote, virtually every officer with whom we spoke, having given custodial recordings a try, was enthusiastically in favor of the practice, end quote. 68% indicated they believed the suspect would confess falsely not very often, 40%, or almost never, 28%. This quantifies the perception of trial attorneys who report that the vast majority of potential jurors insist that it is not possible for someone to confess to a crime he did not commit. Kind of like these goofs like Sub Rosa. They're too brain dead to understand that people can falsely confess all the time. And I think Richard Allen's false confession, if it's false, is different. Because if he was really in prison with all of these Odinists and other people that, or even prison guards who were coercing him, if they threatened his family, that's a little different than just driving him insane. But I mean, they could have used both tactics as well. Big Pine Sailing. I wish I got so weak I fell on the stairs, broke a rib while handcuffed. I was so cold I couldn't speak. They had me chained up like Hannibal. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, that should have happened to Sub Rosa instead of you, sounds like. Wonder what his attitude would be like then. There have been 43 wrongful convictions in New York State. New York outpaces almost every other state in the number of wrongful convictions overturned by DNA testing. That's interesting. In the last 7 years, there have been a particularly high number of DNA exonerations in New York State. Since 2017, wrongfully convicted people in New York have been exonerated with DNA evidence. 7 of the 17 were wrongfully convicted of murder. In 10 of New York's 26 DNA exonerations, the actual perpetrator was later identified. In 9 of the 10 cases, the actual perpetrators of crimes for which innocent people were wrongfully convicted went on to commit additional crimes while an innocent person is in prison. I mean, this is what brain-dead goose like Sub Rosa support. Because when innocent people are in prison, the true guilty party are also victimizing others, murdering, assaulting others. And Sub Rosa supports all of this because in his brain-dead mind, in his deficient, deranged mind, the opinion of jurors equals truth. I mean, that's crazy. So in 9 of the 10 cases, the true guilty parties have additional victims. I mean, that's crazy. According to law enforcement reports, 5 murders, 7 rapes, 2 serious assaults, and 1 robbery at gunpoint were committed by the actual perpetrators of crimes for which innocent people were imprisoned. Each of these crimes was committed after the wrongful arrest or conviction, so they could have been prevented if wrongful convictions had not happened. Eyewitness misidentification played a role in 13 of the 23 wrongful convictions in New York that were overturned with DNA testing. In 11 of the so this is just how it's all piled on. You have eyewitness misidentification, coerced false confessions, and it's all put together for these jurors to see all the false evidence, and then they make their ruling. That's why it's not proven. It's a verdict, an opinion verdict. In 11 of the 26 cases in New York, innocent people falsely confessed or admitted to crimes that DNA later proved they did not commit. Limited or unreliable forensic evidence played a role in 10 of the 23 wrongful convictions in New York that were overturned through DNA evidence. In 9 of those 10 cases, the actual perpetrators of crimes for which innocent people were wrongfully convicted went to commit additional crimes while an innocent person was in prison. According to law enforcement reports, 5 murders, 7 rapes, 2 serious assaults. Okay, so we went over that. Additional facts, 35% of the 317 cases exonerated by DNA received no compensation. That's messed up. 22 states require the recording of an interrogation. According to the Innocence Project, 25% of wrongful convictions overturned by DNA evidence involve a false confession, and many of those false confessions actually contain details that match the crime details that were not made to the public. That's a very important one. So basically, the police gave them information so that they could repeat it in a false confession. Because again, even in the Memphis 3, a lot of I'm not saying they're innocent or guilty, but a lot of goofs hallucinate that Miss Kelly's confession contained details that weren't known, as if the cops couldn't have given them those details while not recording many hours of the interrogation. If approximately 27% of the total number of exoneration cases involved a false confession, and if 10% of the 2 million and men and women in prison in the United States are innocent, as estimated by the Department of Justice, we can gather that as many as 50,000 convictions involved false confessions. Now, that's just an estimate. That's not definitive. But that's based on what is currently known. 50,000. Are you listening, Sub Rosa? Sub Rosa got mind shocked. Is Sub Rosa still here? Sub Rosa's still here. Man. I don't know when the goof's timeout expires, but... See you next time, Flat Bob. Yeah, so this is, again, these figures are straight from the Department of Justice, okay? So if you extrapolate the numbers, that 27% of the total number of exoneration cases involve false confession. So if 10% of the 2 million women imprisoned are innocent, which is the estimate by the Department of Justice, this is the actual United States government Department of Justice, the result is approximately 50,000 wrongful convictions involving false confession. So this 50,000 doesn't include many other thousands that don't involve false confession. So again, this is just the 50,000. So there would be way more. You're talking about... So the difference there would be... So there would be an additional 73,000 wrongful convictions. So 50,000... So basically, according to these numbers, there's 123,000 wrongful convictions. 50,000 of them would involve false confessions. So yeah, this 1 in a million hallucination by brain-dead goofs like Sub Rosa. I mean, we're talking over 100,000. Again, these are extrapolated numbers. It could be even way more than that, because the extrapolated numbers are only coming from the known numbers. So these are known wrongful convictions and false confessions. This does not include an unknown amount. So it could be way more than this. But so there's a minimum of 50,000 false confession wrongful convictions currently. That's minimum. Actually, I think he was just on a 30-minute timer, but let's see. Actually, timeout duration was 30 minutes. Yeah, I think it should have expired by now. So I think he should be able to post now. Oh, let me double check. Alright, so I reset it for 10 seconds. Let's see if he can talk again. Because I'd like to see his... Because we're getting into the real facts and figures again, straight from the U.S. Department of Justice and all these different studies on wrongful convictions. You could verify all this, falseconfession.org, with the sources. You don't have to trust falseconfession.org. Just check the sources. So Sub Rosa should be able to comment now. Let's see if the goof has anything to say. So we're talking over 100,000. So 100,000 minimum wrongful convictions, over 123,000. A minimum of 50,000 that would involve false confessions. So many tens of other thousands that don't involve wrongful false confessions, but a minimum of 50,000 that would. As of February 4th, 2014, 1,403 people have been exonerated in the U.S. since '89, according to the National Registry of Exoneration. And once again, I have to reiterate, think about the overwhelming evidence required to even get an exoneration. Because if this many have been definitively exonerated, I mean, it's just crazy. In the same period, the number of non-DNA exonerations rose from 34 in 2005 to 59 in 2012 and to 69 in 2013. In 2013, 72% of the 1,281 exonerated from January 89 through December 2013 were cleared without DNA evidence. 20% of the 1,281 exonerees had a false confession as a contributing factor. In 2013, between January 89 and December 2013, 152 of the non-DNA exoneration has the highest in the nation. Studies of proven false confessors have shown that even in cases involving confessions later to be proven false, Juries convict in 73 to 81% of the cases. So a jury is always more likely to confess if there's a confession involved, regardless of the person is innocent or not. So yeah, I guess Sub Rosa's too triggered to make any comments now that their goofery has been completely exposed, called out, and all the facts and figures direct from .gov and .edu sources have demolished the goof. Which is also very, very sad, that the fact that this is why people call it the injustice system. And these are all the low figures. Again, these are the minimum numbers, because it could be way more. It's just only based on the definitively. And obviously there's no real incentive. There's a lot of roadblocks to getting exonerations because, of course, just the egos. It's not even necessarily pure evil, complicity, framing on the part of law enforcement. It's just basic ego. You know, judges, prosecutors, lawyers, they don't want their incompetence exposed. Like, if it was innocent incompetence and they weren't intentionally putting away someone they knew was innocent, which also happens, obviously, in X% of cases. I'm not going to give the percent, I don't know the percentage, but even if they really thought the guy was guilty and he wasn't, they don't want that exposed for all the world to see. So there's a lot of roadblocks to getting exonerations. So what is everybody's final thoughts here? I actually thought Sub Rosa wouldn't be. They seem to be okay humiliating themselves, so I thought they'd comment again. Maybe dig a deeper hole, but I guess not. Maybe they truly learned a little lesson here. If they were wrongfully convicted, they would be crying for people to actually employ logic and reason and find the true perpetrator. So yeah, if you want true justice and closure for family and friends of victims, I mean, you have to, maybe he is guilty, but you have to actually prove that with actual evidence, not relying on a confession, true or not. Not relying on a spent cases from the not murder weapon. I mean, I haven't seen anybody post any actual legitimate evidence. All we have is a mountain of evidence pointing away from the official time of death and the official crime scene. All we have are inaccurate eyewitness statements that don't match Richard Allen. So even if they matched him, we could say that they're not accurate, but we can't even get there because the witness statements don't match. So yeah, we went over little clips, we went over other episodes, so many other suspects, they all kind of look like the sketch. I mean, this really is just a truly bizarre case. Now, let's just postulate for a moment, if it really was, let's say, Ron Logan, maybe some Odinists, maybe some meth people. I mean, some of these people are involved in the drug trade as well. And if it really was them, and the crime occurred elsewhere, and many people were threatened. Like, some people thought the Mears were involved because it's at the Mears barn. No. What if these criminals just used the barn, and then intimidated and threatened the family to not come forward? They could be completely innocent and just scared. So, yeah. Truth Trollette says, innocent or guilty, no evidence, verdict is injustice. Exactly. BB asked, was a witness lineup done with Richard Allen? Supposedly no. From what was reported from trial, the witnesses were not asked to. So again, this is just reports from what was. I don't know if they're accurate, because there was a gag order, but reports from the courtroom said that they were not asked. Because normally, it'd be like, who did you see? And they would point to the defendant. Supposedly, they were only asked to describe who they saw. Now, and again, there's some issues there because in their original descriptions, I mean, the bridge guy was described as a muscular 5'10" younger guy with big, poofy blonde hair or whatever. The eye color is different. The clothing is different. So everything was different. So, and again, this is a small town, It's, 2,000-something people. And all these years, they never saw him at CVS. They never saw him at the grocery store. They never saw him on the street, or if he goes to the trails that often, and so do they never saw him there. I mean, it's just kind of weird. The whole thing doesn't add up. And all the funny business with the FBI in the area, you have all these, some police officers committing suicide shortly after the fact. You have Keegan Klein and his pops with their stories. You have the missing gas station footage that the FBI supposedly can't recover. I mean, how is this all above board? I mean, how brain dead of a goof do you have to be to think? Justin Johnson saying Sub Rosa won't be back for 24 hours. I put 30 minutes and then I actually reset it. Where do you see that, Justin Johnson? Oh well, whatever. At least we kind of kept everything more on track here. Since Sub Rosa wasn't able to derail the facts and figures on wrongful confessions and false confessions and wrongful convictions. So, okay. Yeah, any final thoughts here as we round this episode out? I actually had a few more episodes to go over even more info that has not been gone over yet in the case regarding several other POIs. And again, the Ron Logan, Garrett Kurtz fiasco connections, Evansdale. I mean, there's just so much of these weird coincidences and anomalies that if this was all an above-board case, you wouldn't have them. I mean, again, look at all these other cases where there's legitimate evidence against a guy. There's no coincidences or anomalies. I think the rule of thumb is there could be one coincidence. Not 50 or 100, but one. I saw a report, I don't remember the source of that, but I thought it was pretty interesting that all of these former investigators and detectives, they said almost every case has like one little thing that doesn't add up. But when there's 50, I mean, you know, that's kind of an issue. When it literally isn't one thing that does add up, that's the complete opposite. So, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. Hope everybody found another edition of MindShock True Crime interesting and informative. If you want to help support the podcast, help logic and reason return to a world which is quickly going extinct, as here we had Sub Rosa clearly demonstrate that as well. You could donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. If you're not getting them, you can sign up to our Patreon. Even the free tier will get all of the updates. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys next time.